Hi, welcome to Cycology today. I'm your host, Wayne Hathaway. Thank you for watching. Our show is about bicycling in general and bicycle safety specifically. I hope that Cycology today helps inspire you to ride a bike and helps you be a little more mindful about safety. We like to celebrate those in our community that incorporate bicycling into career choices and entrepreneurial endeavors, and strive to encourage others to ride or support cycling and bike safety. Before we meet our first guest, I want to thank the crew behind the scenes, and thanks to the producer, Northwest Bicycle Safety Council. The Northwest Bicycle Safety Council is working on the 2018 season. At those events, they'll be providing helmets for local cyclists who need one, and also to help fit those properly, which is important. There's many wonderful rides here in Oregon and Washington, and the Northwest in general. We're going to learn about a relatively new area to explore by bike, and on a more serious note, we'll also be talking about some bike theft and how to protect yourself. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to talk about, take some time to talk about the Cascading Rivers rides, and that's with our first guest here, Phil Lingelbach. Thank you for joining. Thanks for coming out. Let's talk first a little bit about history. So tell us just a little bit about yourself, your family, your career, and how you came into living in Portland, or where you're from.
So I actually grew up here in Oregon, and I was raised on a century farm out in Estacada. And when I went to work in Multnomah County. And I moved to Portland, lived in Portland about 15 years, and then when came time to raise a family, we decided to move back out to Estacada and live out there. And Estacada is on just the edge of the Mount Hood National Forest. And so it's been a pleasure for us to enjoy nature and to have our kids and everyone in the family get into that. And cycling has been one way to do it.
Yeah. Okay. So what can you share a little bit about what brought you into cycling, like the history a little bit?
Yeah, so when I retired from Multnomah County, I had time on my hands, and so now I could do the things that I had wanted to do but not always had the time to do. And so I got into the art world, and also I've always been a person who does a lot of exercise and physical things, so I really started getting more into cycling because I had the time to do it, and started riding around the area where we lived, as well as getting involved in organized rides, and I've continued to do that.
Yeah. So what's your favorite ride right now?
So probably the favorite one I have is the Cycle Oregon weekend. I've done it almost every year, including the first year when they went down the Willamette from Champoeg Park to just short of Eugene in 2 days. And I just enjoy the ride. I enjoy the great organization that puts it together, and it is just a great way to experience Oregon.
Yeah, right on. Well, let's talk a little, or a lot, because we're going to take a lot of this segment to talk about the Cascading Rivers ride. So we'll start with this new one that you actually shared a little bit about, called the Faraday Moonlight Ride. So what's that ride about? Tell us what's special about that.
So part of we're part of the state's city bikeways program. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is to get people to ride these bikeways and also to experience the things about it. So Faraday is this gated road. The access road is actually controlled by Portland General Electric, and we've worked with them to allow us to use the road to do something a little bit different than anything I've seen in cycling, and that is a moonlight ride. And so this is a gated road, so there's no traffic on it. And what we're planning to do is to meet at 10 o'clock, ride up the road and back, and then have a little celebration. And everyone, of course, has to have a helmet. They have to have a headlight and tail light, and other than that, we want people of all ages and abilities to come in and have a little fun with us.
Have you ever done a moonlight ride yourself?
I have done moonlight runs, but I have never done a moonlight ride. So this is going to be new to us and hopefully a lot of fun for everyone.
Yeah, that's great. So let's start talking about the variety of rides that are in the Cascade Rivers. The dates on that are for Cascade Rivers rides are September.
So the moonlight ride is on August 25th.
Oh, thank you. That's right.
But the 4 other rides we're going to be talking about are on the 29th and 30th
Okay.
of September.
Yeah. So let's go into those.
Okay.
So on the Timothy Lake gravel ride, which I think we do have a picture for this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there it is right there.
Well, that's actually the Killer Fang. And so let's talk about the Killer Fang
Let's
ride.
talk
and
about
then-
the Killer Fang
Then
ride.
we'll do that.
Yep.
So the Killer Fang is named after a section of the river, the Clackamas River, where a house-sized boulder fell on top of the river, and the river dives beneath this boulder to reappear about 100 feet downstream. And this is where the river is actually going underneath that boulder, that house-sized boulder there. And so as you can imagine, it's considered a Class 6 rapid, which means that it's normally unnavigable. So we named the ride after that because it's a tough ride. You're doing a lot of hills. It's all on paved road, nicely paved road, but it's a tough one. It's challenging for a 72-mile ride, but I can guarantee that it's not quite as difficult as navigating the Clackamas River at Killer Fang.
Yeah. So in this ride, I think I saw that it's over. Is it over 2 days or?
Yes. So it's a 2-day ride. So you ride from Estacada to Detroit Lake, and you're going along the Clackamas River and then later the Brighton Bush River. This is a supported ride, so we've got sag wagons, we've got rest stops every 15 miles. We're in an area where you have no cell service, so we have EMTs riding along with us and that we provide, and we also have radio satellite communication so that we can communicate with the routes and with the emergency providers if we need to.
And this isn't the first time you've run this ride before, so.
So this is our 4th year
Yeah.
that we're organizing the ride.
And how's that gone in the past years?
Well, so last year we got smoked out. We had forest fires down in the Brighton Bush area, and the Forest Service had to get people in there to fight the fires, and so they closed the road down. So we were unable to hold our rides last year. And the year before, we kind of got washed out. Particularly the second day of the ride, we had just a nice, steady rainstorm. And so people coming back from Detroit, many of them decided to take other ways of getting back. But those who did come back by bike got pretty wet. And then the other rides were also pretty wet too. So that's the way it goes. This is Oregon.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's take a look at the next picture that we have, and we'll know exactly what ride we're on here. So this looks
very much like a lake to me, and I think that's Timothy Lake.
Yep.
With that beautiful picture of Mount Hood in the background there. So the Timothy Lake gravel ride is something we have not done before. And the reason we're doing it is because it's a straight shot from Estacada to Timothy Lake if you don't mind riding over 7 miles of gravel. And now this is not an easy ride. There's a lot of hills on the way. And so it is challenging. And you can either do it all the way from Estacada, 84 miles, or if you want to take an easier route, we'll start you at Ripplebrook, and then it becomes a 32-mile route.
So 84 miles on gravel.
7 miles of which is on gravel. Most of it is on good road,
Okay.
good paved road.
Okay. What's as far as equipment to be able to navigate the gravel road? Is there anything special added?
Yes. So what you'll need to have is some kind of a fat tire. The gravel does not lend itself to a road bike. I mean, there are times when it's firm enough that you might be able to ride it, but for your safety, we're going to require a gravel bike. So this is a bike that has a little fatter tire, so you get better tread and better traction. And and this will help you navigate the hills also better.
Do you see gravel riding has it become a little more popular? Is that why you might?
Well, so I have a gravel bike myself, and the reason I got it was because you have all these old logging roads. There's not a lot of logging going on right now in the National Forest, but there are a lot of logging roads out there, and some of them have great vistas. They're kind of neat places to ride, but you just can't do it with a road bike. And so with a little fatter tire, like a gravel bike, it's a great place to take off the main road and get up into the woods a little bit more and experience something that you couldn't do on a road bike.
Do you see, have you seen this type of gravel ride you've done in the past, I assume? Have you seen the number of participants in this one grow?
Generally what we're seeing is it more attracts a younger crowd.
A younger crowd.
And they have taken it a little more because sometimes it's a little more challenging, but also it gets you off the beaten path and a little more into the wilderness areas.
Okay. Yeah. I wonder if that's also on the increase with the popularity of cyclocross.
That could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go to the next ride and let's take a look at the next picture in our series. And so this one.
So this is along the Clackamas or Brightonbush. I'm not sure which one. But it could be either one because these rides are right along the river like that. And the one that we have out of Estacada on the 30th is called the Raging Rapids. And this one goes right along the Whitewater section. So you're going by 11 of the rapids of the Clackamas that are rafted or kayaked. And so you'll see kayaks and play boats and rafts out there fighting these rapids as you ride along.
What's the distance on that one again?
So the distances on this one are either your choice. Again, you can go 35 miles and take a little detour up the Fish Creek, which is a little road, very seldom traveled, nice cedar forest for about 1.5 miles, and then turn around and come back. And so you experience both kind of getting away from the highway and also the rapids area that I talked about before. And then the second one takes you up to Ripplebrook and back. So Ripplebrook is a mountain store about 26 miles out of Estacada.
So those are the two.
Those are the
routes
two
on
for the
this
Raging Rapids.
Yeah. And I assume have you ridden all these?
Yeah, so I've ridden all the way to Detroit in various sections and back. So I know this road really well and the sections of it and what's going on there.
Okay. Would you consider this as challenging as that gravel ride? Or?
No, so this one's a little easier. If you climb up to Ripplebrook, you're going to climb a hill. You're going to grind up a hill. It's about 1 mile long, but the 35-mile one really doesn't have any serious hills on it. So it's a good ride for someone who wants a middle distance, no challenging hills, and kind of get away from the road for a little bit.
That's good. Let's go to the next picture. I think this is either the last or the second to last.
Yeah, so this is along the highway, and this is again what you're going to see out there. So this would be in the same Raging Rapids, but this is some of the scenery that you see.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
This is a nice little drone shot of coming down the hill there. So
very good. So then the other ride that I don't know that we talked much about is the Little Riffles.
Yeah, so the Little Riffles, so that's along Faraday Road, the same one where we're doing that moonlight ride.
Okay.
And we call it the Little Riffles because it's really a family ride. 9 miles of the 12 miles is along a gated road, and you can actually start, if you want to start totally away from traffic, you can start up and ride on this gated road where there is no traffic, and it's relatively level, it's nicely paved, it's maintained by PGE. Great place for families, little kids, we really see this as the way to get people into cycling, is getting families involved, making it easy for people to get started, and ride away from the traffic if you're uncomfortable with traffic on the same road. And hopefully that'll inspire people to start taking a little more time and doing a little more, and really get into cycling more.
Yeah, so it's like you're tearing it right out of the script. You're cheating, because that's what we're. So we've kind of gone through all those rides. Like if you were to give a summary of all those rides for people that are interested, but they're not sure.
Yeah.
You know, which ride do I do?
Yeah. Well, again, it's what we want to do is give people lots of choices. You know, because we think there's a ride here for just about everyone. And what we're really about is getting more people on bikes, riding bikes, enjoying it, enjoying this beautiful national forest and nature that we have here. And also, this also helps these small towns, these little towns like Detroit and Estacada that used to be dependent on logging, and now we're looking at something new. And this is one of the new things that helps us build our economies and makes it more pleasurable for people who come out there and do things.
So how about I'm somebody that I've never ridden before, but I've thought about it. How would you help encourage somebody before they ever say, oh yeah, I'm in on one of these rides, just to like take the first step?
Yeah.
What advice would you give those people?
Yeah, so again, I think it's what's good about this is we provide the safety and the amenities that you otherwise wouldn't have. I mean, yes, you can come out there and ride anytime, but you're not going to have a rest stop every 15 miles where you have snacks and hydration and so forth. You're not going to have radio communications unless you go out and buy your own radio. You're not going to have an EMT or the support, and so this provides the safety net really, and encourages people to come out there and start riding, because we're there to make sure that it's as pleasurable and as safe as it can be.
Yeah. What drove you to get into this area? We talked a little bit before.
Yeah.
Can you share just some of that history on
Yeah.
how this came to be for you?
Yeah. So with one of the reasons I, of course, am doing this, because it's one of my passions, and the reason it's a passion is I've always loved nature, and I really love the national forests and being out in an area like that. And along this route, you've got 3 wilderness areas, you've got 6 of Oregon's 58 wild and scenic rivers. And so this is a great way to experience it. I like to get out and ride early in the morning. The birds are singing, you know, it's cool. There's not a lot of traffic. You can hear the water rushing, you can smell the campfires, and it's, if heaven is something like this, it's a great place to go to. That's the way I look at it. I just love riding out there in nature and enjoying it.
Yeah, I relate to that quite a bit. What else would you, like, people that are watching, do you want to share, either, you know, cycling in general, getting into it, or the event? If they've heard this and they're like, yeah, I think I really do want to get into this, you know, where would you direct them?
Yeah, so I think our website is is going to be up there,
It was on the screen.
Be on the screen there. And so you can go there and get more information. My phone number's on one of the things where you could call me if you have other questions. Be glad to talk to you and answer any questions you may have. And so anyway, that's what we're trying to do, is to help you make the decisions you need to enjoy things the way we do. So
yeah, okay. Well, I really appreciate you coming out, and thanks for sharing what you shared, just what you said in the pictures. So we're gonna take a short break. We're gonna say goodbye to you.
Okay. Well, thanks for the opportunity to share this with you.
Yeah, and we've got a couple of videos to to go up, and then we'll get back with our second guest. Thanks a lot, Phil.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In Oregon, our forests and rivers are more than just scenic viewpoints. They're a chance to play in the water, cast out a line, and swing among the trees. Savor the great outdoors as you pedal toward adventure on the Cascading Rivers Scenic Bikeway. Oregon has some of the most beautiful places in the nation for biking, and it's also one of the most bike-friendly states. That's why it's the first state in the country to have official scenic bikeways. The Cascading Rivers Scenic Bikeway is a 72-mile road route that traverses the foothills of the Cascade Mountains. It begins in historic downtown Estacada with bike-friendly businesses and cafes. It follows car-free Faraday Road, then continues on quiet forest roads alongside the Clackamas and Brighton Bush rivers. And it ends in small community of Detroit, along the banks of Detroit Lake. Camp in lush old-growth forest, ride beside rocky cliffs, and play in meandering mountain rivers. Experience nature beyond the viewpoints, and come ride the Cascading Rivers Scenic Bikeway.
Ride single file in the same direction as traffic. Obey traffic signs and signals. Signal your turns and look behind you before you turn. And always stay alert. So just think of your helmet as part of your gear. You don't see a soccer player without shin guards.
You don't see a basketball player without shoes.
You don't ride your bike without your helmet. It's part of the gear.
Ride safe, ride smart. It's time to start today.
Bike safe, bike smart.
Hi. My name is Xander.
And my name's Elizabeth.
Over the next few minutes, we're going to have some fun and talk about some pretty important stuff.
Some of it you've heard before, but it never hurts to hear it again.
And again.
And again. So here we go. Did you know that just falling off your bike is enough to get a serious brain injury? So play it safe. Wear your helmet every time you ride. It can reduce the risk of head injury by up to 85%.
And that's a lot. The helmet should be snug on your head and sit flat. The strap should form a V under your ear, and the chin strap should also be snug. 2 fingers should fit in between your eyebrow and your helmet.
Also, make sure your helmet meets safety standards. Look for a sticker that says CPSC. This stands for the Consumer Product Safety Commission.
All the stuff we talked about today is common sense.
But you still need to think. Be courteous, and be predictable by always riding in a straight line.
Wear a helmet. And follow the rules of the road. Ride with traffic on the right side of the road. Ride single file.
Obey traffic lights and traffic signs. Check behind you before turning. Use proper hand signals.
Stop, look left, right, then left again before entering a street. And use caution at an intersection.
Make eye contact with other drivers. Be careful around parked cars and watch for objects in your path.
And at night, be seen to be safe.
Never assume that motorists or pedestrians will see you. Remember, bikes are smaller than cars, and if there's a crash between the two, any guesses who will win?
That's all the time we have. So remember these 4 words. Bike safe, bike smart.
All right, welcome back to Psychology Today. We have our second guest, Bryan Hance is here with us. So welcome, Bryan.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So let's start with a little bit of history. Tell us about yourself, how you...
A bit of history. That's a wide... I moved to Portland in 2008. I've been here ever since, and I'm never leaving. I love this town. It's a great cycling town. It's a great town for work. It's a great town for people. And that's me in a nutshell. So.
Oh, that's quick. So 2008, you moved here, and before that?
Before that was Cleveland. Before that was Tucson, Arizona.
Oh,
So Tucson's super cycling friendly. Cleveland, not so much.
Okay.
So there's a small interim in there that was a little difficult, but I was really happy to move back to a town that really supports cycling, and it's really part of the lifeblood here.
So you have your own cycling history.
I do.
Tell us.
I go way back. It's funny. I know you asked the other guests. How did you get started in cycling? And mine was purely economic. It's the only way I could transport myself around was bikes, and that just stuck with me. And Tucson is a great town for training. There's a lot of people that do seasonal training out there. So there's all this great infrastructure. And I had that for so long. And when you leave that, and you move elsewhere, and you realize, man, I really had it good. And then you come back into it again. It's like it's like a breath of fresh air. It's like you don't realize how much you missed it.
Yeah.
So cycling is a real, I'm a daily commuter. I try to do pretty much all of my commuting by bike these days. I have far too many bikes than I probably should at this point, like most people in Portland that are into cycling.
How many?
I'm not going to answer that
you
question.
Gotta tell me.
No, I'm not going to answer that question.
Well, the perfect equation.
I just got a new one on Monday, so I'm not going to answer that question. So.
Okay. It's always the number you have plus one.
Plus one.
Yeah.
And plus one. Yes, exactly.
Right on. All right, so you have a passion for cycling.
I do. I really, and honestly, it's a lot of people are like, oh, you're a cyclist. It's like, no, I just live in Portland. I just live in a city where it's, especially right now, it's 10 times easier to get from A to B on a bike, no matter where you're at, where you're trying to go. And I'm lucky enough that I live up here and I work down here, so every commute in to work in the morning is a breeze. It's the best part of my day. It's going home that sucks because you're going up this big hill. Yes. So I start my day on a very good note because I get on my bike and there's no effort and it's cool outside. You can hear the birds and it's just this absolutely dream. It's a dream ride. But again, going home is the hard part. So it's real close to my heart.
That's great. So we're going to talk a little bit about the software that helps people find lost bikes. And
would you like the 10,000-foot overview of bikeindex.org?
Let me make sure we don't go off.
Okay.
I do want that.
Yeah.
So what I want to know, so I want a 10,000-foot view, but if you can also include how you even got in.
Yeah, of course. I had tons of bikes stolen. This is back in the mid to late 90s, and I was a fledgling computer nerd, CS guy. And nobody had really sort of put it together like, hey, there's this thing called the internet, and we have these things called mobile phones that are really, you could see the sort of rise, you could see where they were heading. And there were all these small registries for bikes, usually run by cities or counties or schools or maybe a police department, and none of them talked to each other. So they were effectively worthless. And where I was at the time, thieves would come on campus, steal bikes, take them 100 yards that way, and they'd be on city property. So even if they found them, nobody ever put 2 and 2 together. So I ran a different site called Stolen Bicycle Registry for a long time that focused only on stolen bikes. No matter where you were, if you had your bike stolen, you could put it in a system and everybody had access to the information. It was totally free. It was built for bike shops. It was built for anybody who wanted to check out a bike. 2013-ish, there's a guy in Chicago named Seth Herr who started a similar project called Bike Index, and he ran bike shops and he saw it from the other side. He sold all these bikes. These bikes are going out the door. A week, 2 weeks later, they would get stolen. The customer would come back in and say, man, I need my serial number. And he would be like, he's got to dig through all this paperwork. And it was just a terrible process.
Yeah.
So he was trying to register bikes before. I was trying to register bikes after. And it was like, chocolate and peanut butter. We merged, and we just watched the numbers go like this the minute that we did. So now it's a really advanced system that tracks bike ownership, bike provenance, and we're sort of a clearinghouse for stolen bike data. So anybody from police to you to me to bike nerds to guys who buy on Craigslist to giant commercial stores, anybody who comes into contact with a bike can just whip out their phone and check on a bike's serial number in about 30 seconds.
And it'll have information.
And it'll tell you, if it's stolen, it'll come up really obviously. Even if we don't have the serial number on file, you can go through photos and say, White Trek, Portland, Oregon, 10 miles of this particular zip code, and it'll just show you, okay, here's all the bikes that are stolen in that area. And the technology, it's funny, the hardest part of this is not the tech, it's just getting people to use it. So we're on, 5-6 years of this now, and we sort of hit that critical mass where we have enough people in enough towns that, bike is stolen at 9 a.m., somebody spots it at noon, and it's home by 4:30, which is mind-blowing. Or even, this last week we had Portland police found one that had been stolen and was reported with us on file in 2013. So they called the guy up and say, hey, do you remember us? You had this bike stolen so many years ago. We have it. And of course, he's amazed that it even works that long.
So it was returned to him. And that was all based on this individual who actually registered.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that we put the, I think the website went up there, but it's
bikeindex.org.
Bikeindex.org.
All one word.
Yeah. So you said you've personally had a couple bikes.
I had a lot of bikes stolen. When I worked at university, and it was a super heavy cycling town. It wasn't the greatest neighborhood in the world, and there were a lot of other factors that just sort of combined to a lot of the building. They wouldn't let you bring the bike in, so you had to park it outside. I worked really weird hours, so it was just this horrible storm. It was like Monday, bike stolen. Next Tuesday, bike stolen. It's like I'd buy a terrible bike, somebody would steal it. It was just a litany of bike theft. And I look at the numbers now in Portland, and it's sort of heartbreaking because I can see, every morning I wake up, I'm checking these listings, and I can see where the bike was stolen from, and I can see what part of Portland it is, and I'm like, oh, there's a neighbor. I know this guy. It's such a small community that I'll be going through 20 or 30 listings in the morning, and I'll know exactly where they're at, or I will have known the person or seen the bike, and it's heartbreaking. Yeah. Especially in summer in Portland. Like, now's the time. Yeah. Now is the peak season, and the numbers are nuts.
So for somebody that maybe isn't deep in the technology, but wants to know, well, how does that work? Because this is dependent on people coming in and registering.
It is, yeah.
Before they get something started.
Yeah, and sadly a lot of people find us only after they've been robbed, or their apartment's been broken into, or their business has been broken into, and they're sort of scrambling to find this paperwork that, of course, nobody keeps. So we work really hard with retailers and bike shops and other entities that the minute they're selling someone a bike, we're trying to capture that information. And I won't go into the details, but we talked up point of sale systems, for example. Okay. So as they're selling you the bike, they say, oh, here's their email. When we take that transaction as golden, we know it's a trusted transaction because it's a shop that sold it to you. Yeah. So we have a huge number, fortunately, of bike shops here in Portland and in the Pacific Northwest that as they're doing the credit card, that bike is in Bike Index, and nobody has to lift a finger, because that information is coming out of the computer system, as opposed to someone having to log into the website and take a picture and do all the work. We try to make it really easy. We try to remove that friction. Yeah. And it's a super boring topic unless you're like a software nerd, but it's the way to solve the problem.
I don't think
and it really works. It really so this weekend, for example, STP, we're doing a booth in conjunction with the Portland Police, has a bike theft task force. So we have a ton of volunteers, and we're going to have a huge tent. And we're going to have police officers there that work with us, and we're going to register as many bikes as we possibly can. And of course, that's a high concentration of high-end bikes in one place at one time. So you sort of aim for these events like that, and we can blow through 600 bikes in a day easy, and that's kind of what we're aiming for.
So a little bit about your opinion on effective ways to keep your bike locked to prevent this ever even happening.
It's funny because it's like the same refrain you hear all the time. Have a really good lock. If you have a really expensive bike, don't skimp on the lock, right?
Yeah.
The sort of edge cases that I really try to educate people about are so like apartment buildings, secure bike rooms almost never are. I have, every week somebody emails me and say, yeah, somebody got in our bike room and took, 15 bikes in one shot. Businesses, it's the same thing. A lot of businesses, you go into a building in downtown Portland, you park the bikes in the basement, you go work upstairs. Somebody gets in that basement room, all bets are off.
Yeah.
Portland is also especially bad for like attached garages. Like Portland's bad for theft in general, to be honest. But a lot of thieves know to hit buildings that aren't part of your house. Where a lot of people say, oh, my bike's in my garage, it's cool, I don't need to lock it up. Absolutely false. It's like the perfect storm. You've got all the stuff to steal, and you've got the getaway vehicle right there, so they take all your tools, they go through your car, and they get on your bike and they ride off.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think, oh, use a U-lock, problem solved, I never have to worry again.
Yeah,
they're not thinking,
I'm like, oh, use that.
Yeah, and they're not thinking about these other scenarios where it's at home in a garage, or it's at their business, or maybe it's, we've had just a crazy number of scenarios that people, oh, well, it was only there for 10 minutes. I put it in a closet in the back of my work because we had somebody come in, and of course somebody strolled in and walked out with it. So use good locks, that's a no-brainer. Don't use cable locks, that's a no-brainer. But the other one is just have this mentality of like, no matter where it is, you fix it to something. Don't just put it in that room and pretend that room is safe.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
That just made everyone paranoid. I know, but it's
no,
it's
I
true.
didn't get more paranoid. It was it's good. It's informative, actually. So U-lock is most effective.
I say two.
though.
I say two U-locks.
Two U-locks.
Yeah, and I won't go into it, but we see a lot of really advanced attacks against U-locks.
Oh, wow.
People are using specialized tools that are portable, that are battery operated. So they'll run around at 2 o'clock in the morning with a truck and just hit racks and go bzz, 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 and your U-lock, unless you spent the right amount of money, proportional amount of money on a U-lock. And they're smart. They know which ones are weak. They know which ones have vulnerabilities. There's weeks in last year where I saw, 17 reports of the same lock, the same one particular model of a particular lock from a particular manufacturer that you would all recognize, because there's this one tiny little weak point, and word got out. That's the point that you attack. So we usually say, 2 locks. 2 locks is the way to go, and there's the Sheldon Brown method, of course, but it's always, if the guy next to you has 1 lock, you better have 2. If he has 2, you better have 3.
Well, what's Sheldon? You said the Sheldon Brown.
The Sheldon Brown method is a particular method, like if you're like on a public rack, that you do it through this particular part of the frame, you do it to your more expensive wheel, not the front, and then we tell people, do a cable lock around but we say forget cable locks entirely. You might as well be using dental floss. Just get 2 U-locks and get used to carrying 2 U-locks.
If somebody were trying to understand some of that information.
We have extensive information on both proper locking technique and where do you find a serial number on a bike. A lot of people don't even know, and there's some crazy bikes out there that have serials in very strange places. So we have bikeindex.org has a lot of this sort of general information that we publish articles, and we have print PDF guides. For example, we have a really popular guide called How Not to Buy a Stolen Bike Online. Mm-hmm. If you're an honest person and you're looking at one of these services that sells bikes online, what are the steps you want to go through to make absolutely sure you're not getting a stolen bike? Because we do get a lot of people who, they're like, man, I got this 800-ish, I got this really expensive bike for 1/10 of what it's worth. I'm so happy. And the friend goes, wait a minute, it's on Bike Index, it's a stolen bike. And they go, of course I could have checked. The good news is most of those people give the bike up without a fight, because 9 times out of 10, they themselves have had things stolen, and it's just, it's good karma.
Yeah.
But we get a stunning amount of people who just think they're doing e-commerce, and they take the bike home and they try to register it for themselves, only to find, hey, that was my neighbor's from 4 blocks over, or, it's from 2013, it's a stolen bike.
Yeah.
So we identified this problem, came up with a real easy to follow visual guide, turned it into a PDF, and we offer it for free on bikeindex.org. So a lot of law enforcement people picked it up, a lot of Twitter, Facebook type groups. There's tons of Facebook groups for finding stolen bikes in certain geographic areas. They pick it up. As we come up with helpful information, we just publish it for free and throw it out there and beg people to take it.
Wow, that's quite the service. That's good.
We're huge nerds, yes.
Yeah, well, nerds or whatever. It's
Exactly.
great service. I think about what this reminds me of is like when I'm going to go buy a new car, I can do like a VIN search on it and I can see its history. Now, this has become like that.
And there's no analog for that for bikes, but we are it.
Yeah.
We are basically it. 99 out of 100 people will tell you, I don't want to buy a stolen bike.
Yeah.
Because again, they've all been victims themselves. Like, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody in this town that hasn't been a victim of some sort of general theft. Bikes, cars, otherwise, whatever. And there's, you want to unite people. Everybody pretty much hates theft. No one's like pro theft. So it's true.
Yeah. How about, do you see the most common bikes or kind of bikes that are stolen these days, or is it just all over the map?
It's honestly anything and everything. And we get everything from the super high end, carbon fiber racing. Those break my heart because those typically have stories associated with them that are 10 times more emotionally draining than just your average, beater bike that someone rides around town just to get from A to B.
Yeah.
There is no. There are some brands that are sort of like the Honda Civic of bikes, so of course their numbers are greater. But we get everything from, the cargo bikes, these big Dutch bikes that people take their kids around in that, they're bright orange and they're the size of a car. Surely they're going to stand out. And bikes like that we often do recover because they are so unique, they're so different. Or bikes with particular paint colorings, for example. But it's anything and everything. Pretty much, you give a thief an opportunity, they're not going to care if it's a Trek or a Salsa or a Colnago. They're just going to take whatever's there.
So it's opportunistic often.
It's pretty much just opportunistic, yeah. We have seen them, they're smart enough. They're not complete morons. If they get into a bike room and there's 4 incredibly high-end bikes and 10 terrible bikes, they're going to go right to the high-end bikes. They have an eye for it. But if the cheap ones have an easier lock and they get out faster, they'll go for those. But there really is there's no one. It's all across the board.
Yeah. So, I think you covered a lot of that. Because one of the questions I had was, are there scenarios where which bikes are taken more often than not? And I think
it's weird because it's also kind of seasonal. In the summertime, everyone's using their garages, so that they start hitting garages, or they sometimes leave them in their cars. They start hitting the cars. In the wintertime, they all move indoors. They start hitting businesses, and there's almost this seasonality to it. Yeah, we always see public thefts just because they're out and visually in the open, and it's really easy for somebody to sort of just snatch and run. But you can tell when tactics shift. It's very strange. We do collect a lot of this information. We try to get was it locked? Was the lock compromised? Was it indoor? Was it outdoor? Do you have a police report? What's the value? We're trying to get as many metrics on this as we can, because there's all sorts of interesting things we can do with those metrics. So we do get some pretty bizarre. You get the craziest stories. Like we had a bike that even on the recoveries we try to collect who had it, where was it, were police involved when they found it, where did it come from, and sometimes it's like, oh, the cops found it. And sometimes it's like, well, the bike was inside of a Porsche and someone rammed the Porsche into a house. So when we pulled the Porsche out of the house and we pulled the bike out of the Porsche, we thought, hey, it's probably stolen. And it was. So you get it was like the turducken of bike theft. It's amazing. You get the craziest stories. It's probably one of the more interesting parts of my day is when I wake up in the morning and I open up all the cases that have come in. And there's an approval process, and we try to clean some records up, but you see the craziest things that come through.
Are there any recovery stories that have stood out the most for you?
Always. It's everything from like absolute joy to absolute heartbreak. We have bikes that someone will register a bike, and then we'll find the bike, and they'll email us and say, look, I didn't put this in my report. I didn't want to tell anybody, but I was assaulted. I got put in the hospital when that bike got taken. So it's great that you got my bike back. It's even better now because the guy who pawned it, we know who he is, and I've ID'd him as one of the assaulters. So you get these, that's a terrible, heartbreaking story. You're like, oh my God, I had no idea. But you also get cases where it's like, that was the bike my dad gave me, and he's not around anymore. Like, if there's one thing in this world that means anything to me, it's that bike. And it was 4 years ago, and somebody sold it on eBay, and it went to Connecticut. And some guy in Connecticut bought this bike, looked it up, and called me and said, "You're never going to believe this. It's obviously changed hands 57 times, but I have your bike." And they just break down.
Oh man!
They've been it's the last thing they're expecting. So it's the stories are, we actually publish our recovery stories every month. I just published ours on Monday.
Okay.
So every single bike that comes through Bike Index that we recover, we do a quick roundup. And if you ever want some crazy bike recovery, bike theft stories, go to bikeindex.org/news. And we publish them because it's, A, it tells people how to make these things happen. B, it gives you hope. You know, you read these, you think, oh, I'm never going to see my bike again. And then you read these stories and say, oh, wow, you know, this bike went from San Francisco to Guadalajara, Mexico, and somebody got it back. Like, of course I might get my bike back.
Wow.
It's that little sliver of hope. And those are the stories that also, you know, that's what gets people kind of looking out for these bikes and keeping an eye open and following the Bike Index Twitter feed, or, you know, looking at our Facebook page and sort of saying, I want to stop this in my community. How do I help? These stories are great. I want to do one of those.
Yeah.
And that's how we sort of, you know, nudge people like, well, this is how the 45 people did it last month. This is how, you know, you can do it if you want to do this with us.
So let's talk about the process. So walk somebody through, like, their bike got stolen.
Sure. Well, hopefully we get you before that. Hopefully you bought your bike, and if you bought it in Portland, odds are the shop's going to say, hey, here's a card. You write your serial number down. Card's got a big Bike Index logo on it. It gives you this real easy mechanism. Or, you know, there's another shop that on the receipt it actually says, they have their point of sale system says, you know, go register this in Bike Index. Or it's one that we did the point of sale tie-in with, so you don't even have to do anything. It's just already in there.
Okay.
The other scenario is you wake up, your bike's been stolen. Oh man, what do I do? Go to bikeindex.org. There's a big button that says I need to register a stolen bike. We collect, you know, make, model, color, serial. Pictures are a big one. Everyone's got, you know, 1,000 pictures of the bikes in their phone. We'll take a ton of those pictures. You register with us. It goes out through social media. So if you're in Portland, there's a Twitter feed for that. If you're in Seattle, there's a Twitter feed for that. And there's 50 odd cities we do this in now.
Okay.
We have Facebook, we have Instagram. We just get it out there.
Yeah.
And we give you some tools to get it out there too. More importantly, that data is now in our database. And our database is open to anybody and anybody who wants to use it. So we have cops, we have bike shops, we have buyers, we have secondhand, like, pawn shops. Anybody who is honest and comes into contact with bikes, as a bike comes through their hands, they just pull out their phone and go, serial number, boom, yes or no. No matter what state, no matter what city, no matter what jurisdiction. And this is where we sort of differ from the existing systems. Like, your bike gets stolen in Portland, somebody takes it up to Seattle. Even if a cop finds that bike and is diligently trying to find the number, those two computers don't really talk to each other. And there's like a real limited set of criteria that bike would ever show up in the Seattle. Whereas us, they could take it to Australia, it's still going to show up, which we've had happen. Cross border, yeah.
Okay.
So that's how it happens, and it's there in perpetuity. So, you know, 5, 10, however many years later, as long as it's still in that system, it'll pop up. It'll pop up. And it's that, you know, that the technology, I always have the same refrain. The technology is not like, it's like a big Excel sheet, right? You know, there's some whiz-bang technology with the API that lets these other systems talk to us, but it's not really anything like crazy new. It's just getting people to know that you can do this, and to know that it's free, and to know that we're a nonprofit. We're not trying to make a buck on this. We're just a bunch of cyclists who have all been hit, who all know somebody that's been hit by theft, or we've all been victims ourselves, and we just think, man, this is so solvable. You know, all we have to do is run this thing, tell everybody we know, and our success stories are a testament to that.
So the system's, I mean, it's really doing the work for you. You would still, if you got it stolen, you'd still file the police report.
Yeah, and that we actually nudge, you know, we shove people pretty hard. If you show up and you're trying to register without a police report, we're like, no, go do that first. You know, you need that, because that's the only way you're going to get action, you know, in 25 minutes when we find it being sold on one of these websites whose names I'll leave out. But, like, you know, there's some very specific places these days where thieves are fencing bikes, and we know them all.
Okay.
And there's a ton of Bike Index people every morning. They're doing the same thing I'm doing. They wake up, they check site A, they're looking at Bike Index. They check site B, they're looking at Bike Index. There's a Facebook group that's looking at these same sites going, man, here's a incredibly expensive bike for pennies on the dollar from a super sketchy seller. Whose is this? 10 minutes later, oh, it's mine, and here's my Bike Index link. Ad nauseum every morning in every city and every state.
How many people do you have helping doing that?
Our core group is really small. Our core group is like 5 or 6-ish people, give or take. And that's, we're all over the place. We're in Ashland, North Carolina, and Oakland, and I'm in Portland. And we have people all over for the core bike index. But there are groups out there. There are the Portland Facebook group, for example, is some crazy amount. It's like almost 10,000 people, I want to say. And it's the same. That same thing is replicated in other cities. You have like Savannah stolen bikes. You have DC stolen bikes. And you have Bay Area stolen bikes. And we've sort of reached out to and work with a lot of these groups. So San Francisco is nuts. Somebody gets a bike stolen in San Francisco, we probably have it in front of 10,000 eyeballs in the first 5 minutes.
Wow.
And a lot of them are messengers, and a lot of them are bike shop employees, and a lot of them are just people who like transit authority, like guys that run buses and stuff. They're just people who are out in that world, and they're like, okay, bright pink thing with this particular group set up, these particular components. 10 minutes later, bam, I just saw it, and the message goes out.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of, like, I think I'm just saying the same thing you're saying, for the benefit of that social aspect on the internet these days.
And honestly, that's another big, like, one thing that we've been able to show people is, oh, my bike got stolen, I'm totally hosed, there's nothing I can do, nobody cares. No, we got 1,000 people right now, that we just told about it, and that's what really blows people away. And a lot of people don't realize some of the lengths that these people will go to get these bikes. There's a guy running around Seattle they call the Bike Batman, who is just stealing bikes back, and a lot of the people I had never thought in the whole wide world universe anybody would ever do this for me, right? There's nothing in it for them. Why would they do? Why would they be nice? Why would they do this?
Yeah.
Or some people will pay money. They'll be out hundreds of dollars out of pocket, realize it's stolen, and give it up, no question. And people will think, wow, there actually are good people out there. I'm blown away. We get tips all the time that don't pan out. That say, hey, I think I found your bike. Go check it out. And they're like, well, it was really close, but it wasn't mine. But I'm blown away that who are you and why are you doing this? Like, thanks for the tip. It's amazing. I never thought anybody would care about this. And like, no, we do this all the time. We're a bike shop. Every bike that comes through. So just kind of knowing that diligence is out there. That if something so beloved to you goes missing, you're not hosed. There's thousands of people out there in various communities that are willing to help out.
So then there's talk about, there's people out there that they're still, like, they're not going to opt in. They get their bike stolen, and now they have to prove that that is my bike.
Yeah, and it's a big battle. Serial, of course, is the way to go. Serial number trumps everything. But, just pictures and scratches and dings and components. We've had law enforcement pull bikes back, and just from looking at a bike index picture, say, same component, same scratch, same sticker. There's no way this isn't that bike. Even without a serial, it's a match. We're gonna pull it and take it back.
How about insurance? Let's say it goes lost, and are people doing bike insurance?
Some people are doing bike insurance, and there's a couple companies. We work with one of them that do sort of lower cost. It's like millennial insurance. It's sort of targeted towards if you've got a bike but not a car. The problem, insurance, like most people's insurance, that deductible is like, right, you're pretty close to like bike, your average commuter bike value. So a lot of people aren't going to take that hit.
Yeah.
A lot of people just, I've had it for so many years, it's probably depreciated. Great excuse to get on their bike. But we do work pretty closely with some people that offer a little more modern, more forward-thinking insurance that's not, comprehensive car and house and boat and blah blah. It's sort of targeted towards like more people that would be expected to own bikes, sort of the right demographic. But that's an industry that needs to do a little catching up for sure.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here. So I want to, especially for people for anybody that sees this or sees it later, they got their bike stolen.
Yes.
So we already talked about registering, but the first thing they do is, let's say they're registered, the first thing they do is they go to Bike Index.
First thing they do is log into their account, click on the bike and say stolen. Literally everything else is automatic.
And then boom.
We'll poke them if there's little, hey, you're missing this, or you should really get this, or like, oh, you live in this town, here's the guy you want to talk to, or go to this flea market, or go, do this, that, and the other. We'll sort of steer them in the right direction. But it really is, open up Bike Index, click on that bike, hit the bread stolen button, you're done.
Yeah.
And we'll push you to get a police report, and we'll advise you sort of, you know, what the next right steps are to do. But that's pretty much it. It's really that easy.
And to take the next step with the technology within Bike Index, do you guys have kind of a roadmap for that, or do you have enough people?
We have so much stuff on our plate, and so many ideas, and so few people, and so little time and so little money. Like I said, you know, we're a nonprofit. We run purely on donations, and it hurts to get someone's crazy expensive bike back and they don't donate, or they, you know. So we were like, hey, you know, we want to build this great system that does this.
Yeah.
We need a little push. You know, we're not shy. If we help you out, you know, help us out too.
Yeah.
We do have a roadmap. We have a lot of projects, and we have some big things that I was kind of hoping one of them would be done by the time of the show, but it hasn't panned out, so stay tuned.
Oh, right on.
We have lots of partnerships and lots of people and lots of cities.
Okay.
Big thing right now is cities and cops and universities and giant concentrations of bikes and places that want to be cycling friendly. We're just steering them all right to Bike Index.
All right. Great. Well, we are at the end. I really appreciate your time.
Sure thing.
I appreciate you coming
Thanks for
and
having
talking
me.
to us about it.
Always fun to talk bike theft.
Yeah. So let's see. A couple things just to end it off here. The Northwest Bicycle Safety Council, the former president, Bruce Buffington, and the now president, Ann Moreau, have rides listed on pwtc.com on the Portland Wheelman Touring Club, and they have many slow and easier rides to help test the cycling waters. And then just to promote riding with others, you can increase your skill, learn new routes, learn to ride in groups, learn about their rides and events, and make new friends. So please investigate. We just really encourage you to get out there. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and also follow on Twitter. And we're done. So
and at the same time, you're following Bike Index on Twitter.
Yeah, and
Bike Index on
yeah.
Facebook and Instagram. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Bryan. That was great.